Nottingham Forest have made a bid on a player that is literally unreal and very, very high on my shopping list. Welcome to your Forest transfer news. Good morning, good evening, or good night, wherever in the world you are, whatever time of day you're watching this. Hope you're doing well, and welcome to, well, part two, I guess, of Nottingham Forest transfer news today. There is probably more to talk about tonight than there has been for the whole transfer window so far. We got links to players that are out of this world. We got a striker link. We got a player who's in a bit of hot water, and a contract that's been offered to a granddad who's actually still decent. So plenty to cover off. If you're enjoying the content, please don't forget to hit the like button. Subscribe to Forest Fan TV if you are new here. And let's get into this. I'm just excited to start talking about this boy. Let's do it. So apparently, if you believe the sources, and the sources are decent, The Athletic are reporting that Forest have put in a bid for Ibrahim Sangaré from PSV. And if you remember, this guy was the one I shortlisted alongside Tyler Adams and Kelvin Phillips from Manchester City. Any one of those three are perfect and exactly what Nottingham Forest need. And honestly, I don't care what order you pick him in, as long as you pick one. And this one, he's sought after some big boy clubs. We're talking the likes of Arsenal, Liverpool have been linked. Manchester United were chasing him heavily last summer. And then no one ended up buying him. And he's been forgotten about for the last 12 months. And now Forest is sweeping in. And by the way, Forest were interested in him back in the last summer window as well. The thing that's put everyone off him is the price tag. He's been scouted at 30 million. And no one really was prepared to put that much money on him. And it seems that Forest have. But how much have they bidded? We don't actually know. The reports aren't clear on it. But he is that perfect player that we desperately need, in my opinion, in the midfield. Now, don't get all set on thinking he's just an out-and-out CDM. He's not. He has so much more to his game. He's one of the best ball carriers, I think, in the Dutch league. Carries it well forward. He can pick out a good pass, but he just commands that midfield from deep, and he can start the attacks off. That's what I love about him. And what's even more important about him is that he can play in a two-man. And it does free up that extra potential position and doesn't force Cooper into having to play a three midfield, by necessity. So that opens up Cooper's favorite formation in the 5-2-1-2. It could open up a 4-2-3-1. It opens up so many more doors and so many more angles that Forest can be diverse in if you've got a player who can command a midfield. That's exactly what he does. On top of that, he scores goals. Okay, all of this is being talked about from the Dutch league. I get it, but PSV are a good team. Very good in Europe. Even when they're coming across European, strong, big name oppositions, they still put out a good fight and a good show. But let's have a look at his stats just from last season. So for PSV, he made 42 appearances. He scored 7 goals. He got 2 assists. 27 interceptions. His passing accuracy was in the mid-80s in terms of percentage. And he has, 90 successful tackles, I think it was. He's perfect, guys. He's perfect. I'm excited. Finally, this window. Tyler Adams got me excited. He would have been the logical choice in terms of cost, Premier League experience, and everything like that. But Sangare, for me, is the more complete player. And if I could pick between the two, I would lean towards Sangare on what I want, but in terms of practicality, Tyler Adams would be the better fit, and he would be slightly cheaper. But if Forest can afford Sangare and can keep everything within FFP, this one is huge. What do you guys think? Would you take him? Do you know much about him? I know we've spoken about him a lot on this channel, even from last year in the summer window. We were very keen on bringing him into Nottingham Forest. But what a link this is, and get your thoughts in below. But yes, we can confirm a bid and an offer has been put in for Sangare. Brilliant. Okay, let's move on to the next story and talk about our boy who's in a bit of hot water. But before we do, you've got less than 24 hours to claim the last few tickets on this LED signed frame Jono shirt. So make sure you go check it out from Football Prizes. The link's in the description. Okay, Toffolo in big trouble. He has, as we did a short earlier, I'm sure a few of you have seen it. He has been charged by the FA for the alleged breach of their betting rules. 375 counts. Compare that to Ivan Toney, who got charged with 232. I think he even had 30 charges dropped. But even with that in mind, Taffalo has outdone him. Now, this wasn't at his time at Nottingham Forest. It was at his time at Norwich. And it's caught up with him now. Who's been backtracking all of this is probably question one. Maybe it's a Derby fan who's looked into him. Who knows? Who knows? But the point is, potentially, if you look at what happened to Ivan Toney, and each case obviously is different and separate and has its own circumstances, but with more charges put up against him, he could face a heavier fine and he could face a longer ban. I'll remind you of Toney's ban is 8 months long and the fine was £50,000. So could Taffalo be about to be hit with some serious sanctions? Now, the Toney one took ages for it to come through. I remember talking about it before the World Cup last year, and then eventually that got done 6 to 8 months later. So I don't think this will be a quick one. But it does kind of make sense as to why Forest have been prioritising getting a left back in. We've seen loads of left backs linked. And, you know, we've seen Omar Richards back on the pitch. His leg has grown back, thankfully. And we've got him and Toffolo and potentially Nico Williams, who can play left back. So this is starting to make sense as to why the Lodi deal's being repushed, for example, at the moment, and why Augusto was linked and a few other wing backs have been linked as well. Goossens from Inter, Hudson-Odoi, who can technically play at left back, Sessegnon. And by the way, Sessegnon is done and dusted. He's gotten himself an injury. All those retweeters that were saying exclusives and that it was going to happen, well, not so much the case right now. But anyway, the point is Toffolo in big trouble. Remember, this is all allegedly. It's all allegedly. So it could be cleared. It could stand. We'll just have to wait and find out. But just bringing you the update on that one. All right, so let's move on to the next story, and the stories are coming thick and fast. Willian from Fulham, who is actually not a Fulham player currently and was released by the club, but they released him to offer him a new contract. I know, weird, isn't it? But it's a contract that he's considering. And at the same time, another piece of paper has been shoved onto his desk, and that piece of paper has the heading letters of NFFC, as Forest have tabled a contract offer for Willian. Now, he is 35 odd years old. He does play with a Zimmer frame, but he is still very good. That goal he scored against us at Craven Cottage, man, that finesse with his goddamn weaker foot. And to be honest, all throughout the season, he has just surprised. He really has. I remember how crap he was at Arsenal. I remember at Chelsea, he was a decent player. And he seems to have found a new energy and a new lease of life at Fulham. And the reason mainly being is there was no pressure from the Fulham fans on him. They basically said to him, go out and play your stuff. If you lose the ball a few times, cool. As long as you do something the odd occasion, we'll be more than happy. And he just kept doing that and improving and getting better and better throughout the season. But does he still have the legs for the Premier League? Maybe. I think there's probably still another year in him. But I do expect at some stage with Willian for him just to hit that cliff edge and just come crashing down. That's the worry when you get to that age. And also the bones creak a little more. So I get told, I mean, I'm 21, so I don't know nothing about that stuff. And he could potentially be prone to injury. But is he going to go to Forest? I don't think so. I think he will end up still at Fulham. There's been all this talk about Marinakis Jr. following him on Instagram and Willian following him back. Big deal. Whatever. I mean, the contract's there. We know there's talks going on. But I still think Fulham will be his destination. It kind of makes more sense. He's already in London. He's been in London for a long period of time. He's at Chelsea, Arsenal, and now Fulham. It makes sense for him to stay where he is. At that age, it's probably easier to be settled rather than when you're in your 20s, maybe have a younger family or no family at all, and are looking to bounce around and kind of progress your career. So would I take him? Yeah, I probably would. But is it going to happen? I think he stays at Fulham. But what do you think? Would you take him? And where do you think he'll end up? The Sheffield United striker Ndiaye has been linked to Nottingham Forest, the 23-year-old who made 51 appearances last season and scored 15 goals, has had a £17.2 million price tag put around his neck. Where did they get the 0.2 from? But whatever. And this one just doesn't make much sense to me. He's born in France. That makes sense to me. He plays for Senegal. That makes sense to me. What doesn't make sense to me is the fact that Sheffield United would be willing to sell him to a fellow Premier League team. Doesn't make complete sense. The only way I would see this making sense is if Forest were going to send someone back in return. And that person could be Lewis O'Brien. We've already talked to you guys about those links. So maybe we could see some form of swap deal plus cash happening in this one. But I don't know too much about him. Look, since the 29th of May, I refuse to watch Championship football. It is beneath me. It is beneath our standards. So I haven't seen much of him in the last year. But he seems to have developed and thought highly of. Would I take him at Forest? Not for that price. Not for that price. You could get better strikers with better experience, with more goals for less in either other leagues or in the Premier League as well. But that link's been done. There's talks that Forest will be tabling a bid for him. But if you know, or maybe you still watch some Championship football, and if I was going to watch Championship football, it would not be Sheffield United. Let's hope they go straight back down next season. But get your thoughts in on this one. Would you take him or not? For me, this one's a no. All right, so that brings you up to date on your latest Nottingham Forest news. I am so excited about this link to Sangare. And Forest, if you're watching, yes, 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 in the words of Daniel Bryan, get this one over the line. If it's 30 million, it's worth every single penny. If you can negotiate it cheaper, cool. But he is top quality and he has the Wolverine stamp of approval. Now, if you like what you're watching and you haven't already, please don't forget to hit that like button. Subscribe to Forest Fan TV. There are still a few tickets left for the FFTV live podcast and barbecue. So if you want to join us on the 6th of August from 3 p.m. at the Trent Nav in Nottingham, go click the link down below and get your tickets in. We'll be back tomorrow with hopefully some more breaking Forest news in the transfer world. Until then, don't forget to like and subscribe, and come on, you Reds.